Well, folks, we are here back in Vegas, just getting into the vehicle now. For the first time ever, I'm going to totally let you guys select what we do in today's episode. So I'm going to go to Instagram, I'm going to post a story, and I'm going to ask you guys, what do you guys want to see me play today?
Hi, how are you? You want some veg water?
Thank you for 10,000 subscribers.
So after a resounding vote to one side, the lovely people of Instagram, which is, again, the best place you guys can contact us at Close to Broke on Instagram, decided that they'd like to watch us play some cash games. I think 68 or something or 70% of the vote went to cash games. And this is actually a little bit of insight. I'm actually going to be almost only posting tournament vlogs that have deep runs. So spoiler alert, if I post a tournament vlog, it's usually going to be a decent run at it. At the very least, going to be cashing. I just don't want to bore you guys with me playing a tournament not cashing. That seems pretty boring to me. So if you guys haven't already, as you guys can see, the Close to Broke Casino hoodies and shirts are in stock. There was a little bit of an error with the hoodie. There was supposed to be a Close to Broke on the left arm sleeve, but unfortunately, due to some issues with these providers, I was not able to get that printed. So we're going to cut the deal to a very, very small pricing, not even including the fact that there's also a 20% discount code. So you guys can pick them up right now for $40. $40 for a hoodie is ridiculous. There's very few of these things left. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Kieran V. Reina. Again, that's in the description as well. But nonetheless, this episode is pretty freaking fun. There's by far the greatest, I don't want to ruin it, but there's one hand that you guys will see that's toward the end of the video, which you're going to just be blown away. And the table talk afterwards is insane. I hope you guys enjoy the video. As always, we're playing 10, 20, 40 at the Bellagio in the upper room, you know, where you take those 2 steps and you feel like you're in a whole different world. But it's a good time. Really, really, really solid players at the table. Not many spots, so maybe I was a spot at the game. Who knows? Anyways, enjoy the episode. I appreciate you guys as always. And let's crush this freaking session, why don't we? Well, this hand is going to be taking place a little bit after I've clicked the record button, but I'll give you guys the whole breakdown up to this point. We look down at King Jack offsuit in literally the first hand. Yet again, I just have this great tendency of calling and having things when I can't even get my chips in front of me, but the button decides to open for $60. We're playing $5,000 effective. I make the call. The flop comes Jack 8-5 Rainbow. I go ahead and check. The button plays in flow by betting $80. I decide to make the call. The turn comes a 3 of diamonds, bringing the backdoor flush draw. I go ahead and check call another $360 bet. By this point in the river, I don't know exactly what my opponent has, but he either has some kind of bluff here or definitely what's possible is another jack. The river comes a 5 of hearts, so that backdoor flush draw does break out, and the opponent, when I check to him, decides to bet a little bit on the larger side, $900. For this sizing, I'm just assuming that he's trying to rep either ace jack, some sort of a set, or a bluff. I think his hands for bluffs are definitely going to be ace X of diamonds when that backdoor flush draw gets there. But in reality, I'm not totally sure what he's going to have. And I'm just going to have to flick in the call here with top pair second nut kicker. Unfortunately, he does show us ace jack, so we were wrong there. But it's just a classic thing for us to be in situations where we just can't find the fold button. I don't think I can fold there. I'm not going to kill myself over it. It was totally fine. Everybody played the hand pretty much fairly well. Let's see if we can battle back. I might have to pull out the damn battleship. But we're here to play. I feel really good about where my game is at currently. So let's tango. I look down at King 10 offsuit in the cutoff. I decide to raise to $60 here. This is a fine open from the cutoff, especially considering how deep we are. The button decides to 3-bet me to $200. I actually have some previous experience with this exact player. We played with him on a previous Resorts World session vlog, actually. So when it folds back to me, I'm totally fine making the call. He's a pretty decent player, and I'm really comfortable with our ranges. Pre-flop, I feel pretty confident about the situation, and I'm pretty confident I can navigate post flop, so I make the call. The flop comes 10-8, 7 rainbow. The action actually checks through. The turn comes a 9. I'm contemplating if I should turn my hand into a bluff here, but I just think my hand is way too strong to turn into a bluff. I'd rather just check call or check and evaluate to see what he decides to do. So I go ahead and do just that. And surprisingly, he decides to check it back. The river comes in 8. And at this point, I'm just looking to get a little bit of value. When he decides to check here on the river, I'm almost totally confident that I can go for value. And if he decides to raise me, not a big deal. I can just fold. That is what happens. He folds pretty quickly after we make the bet, but happy to take down a pretty nice pot there. Let's run it up, baby. When I tell you this hand is crazy, by the time I finish telling you guys how this hand went, that's going to be an understatement. I'm under the gun, and I look down at 4-3 of diamonds. I open it at $60. I think we're playing 6 or 7 handed at this point. Under the gun +1 decides to 3-bet me to $220. Folds back to me. I'm going to go ahead and make the call here. My range is very polar here. Very strong when I'm opening under the gun, and I call a 3-bet. The flop comes ace 5 8 with 2 clubs and 1 spade. We flop a gut shot here, which would be very much disguised if we were to hit it. I go ahead and check. The villain decides to bet $160. We're gonna go ahead and make the call. The turn is a jack of hearts. I decide to lead out here for $460. I'm definitely gonna have hands like ace jack here, pocket jacks, and pocket eights here. So I can have a ton of really strong hands and a couple of small semi bluffs. I think the only ones that I can think of are hands like this, gut shots, or open-ended straight draws like 6-7 or 4-3 in this instance. He decides to call after a little bit of pondering. The river comes a 4 of hearts. This is an incredible card because all of my semi bluffs for the most part will be getting there by the river. If I had a hand like 3 deuce of clubs, if I had a hand like 6-7, 6-7 of clubs, this river just totally bangs that range. So my entire semi-bluff range gets there on this river. And if all of my semi-bluffs get there on the river, and I still have really strong hands in my range like pocket eights, pocket aces, and jacks, there's just no way in hell I'm not going to be going for gusto. I decide to jam $1,680 to go. My opponent goes deep within the well. My opponent is thinking about it, pondering over his options, and it seems like a lifetime has gone by. He's one of these GTO superstars we love to talk about, the human calculators. He looks down at his phone to randomize. So now I'm sweating bullets here because he's not going to make a call off of looking at my face or whatever. He's going to be looking at his application on his phone to make sure that he's perfectly randomized for this exact instance so he can never be exploited because he's a GTO superstar. Luckily for us, this time he makes the fold. A huge pot coming our way. It feels so good to get a bluff across. Really, really good river for us there to make that bluff a reality. Happy it worked out. We're on to the next hand, baby. All right, quick mid-session update, guys, here at the Bellagio. Kind of pretty card dead and just awful table, so I'm gonna have to find some luck or something because the game is miserable. And yeah, not going to be playing too much longer. I don't even know where we're sitting at, but we're down probably like 1,000 at this point. So let's see how it goes. In the following hand, we find ourselves in the small blind when the button decides to open at $60. We look down at ace 10 of diamonds. Gonna want to be raising this hand up here, putting it in my 3-bet from the small blind range. Not going to be a ton of hands I just flat here from the small blind. This is going to be one that I can go either way with. I decide to make it $280 to go. Got to make it a little more expensive considering I'm out of position for the entirety of the hand. When it gets back over to him, he decides to make the call. The flop comes king, queen, 3, rainbow. I decide to c-bet pretty small here, $180 to go. This is, for the most part, a pretty dry board texture. Besides the obvious gut shots and open-enders like jack 10 and ace 10, not a whole lot going on here. And I feel like if he has a hands like 8s or 9s, no matter what I bet, he's probably going to decide to fold. I bet $180 and he decides to make the call. The turn comes to ace of clubs, and I can again go either way here, but for the most part, I want to have his hands that are going to be going for bluffs here on the river to have the opportunity to bluff and or decide to keep this pot pretty small considering I only have one pair. If he has a hands like ace jack, I think I'd just be value owning myself here. So I decide to check it and he decides to let the action check through. The river comes a 4. At this point, I'm confident that I have the best hand and looking to get value from a hand like king jack, queen jack, or king 10. So I decide to bet $340. And after a bit of tanking, he decides to make the fold. Again, a really ABC hand, I think, that we played fairly well by the book. Happy that we're not playing totally bad. Feels like a really strong session is incoming. Feeling great. First off, I just want to say I'm only human. When really crazy things happen at the poker table, it's hard to hide the emotion. I get pretty excited. And although I'm not vocal about it, like, when I make these vlogs and put them together, they get pretty exciting. Anyways, I looked down an ace-6 offsuit here from the small blind. There is the $40 straddle on. We're going to go ahead and raise to $120. Big blind gets out of the way, and the straddler decides to make the call. The flop is 8-4 deuce rainbow. I see bet to $80, and the straddle raises to $240. I don't know what the hell he's repping in this situation. To have a 3x raise on a flop this dry is really odd. I mean, I don't know what he's repping. 8s, 4s, deuces, I'm not sure. But most of his ranges are going to contain some kind of 5-6, some kind of 3-5, some kind of straight draw that wants to take it down here with 5 high or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and make the call and evaluate. The turn comes a king of spades, bringing a backdoor flush draw. I go ahead and check, and the action actually checks through. The river comes a 3 of spades, so the backdoor flush draw does complete. I decide to look at my hand, and I realize that I don't have the ace of spades. So I go ahead and check once again, and the villain decides to bet $1,200. Yes, a huge, massive overbet here. I'm deep within the tank, and I have so much to think about here. What hands can he pull himself with here? He has to have, I guess, the nut flush, and only that when he goes for this sizing on the river. I can easily have a hand like a flush, a backdoor flush, especially in my range. The fact that he's going so large leads me to believe that he has some sort of ace of spades blocker, some kind of big spade in his hand at the very least, and maybe another one to go along with it for the actual flush. This hand is so weird. I really don't know where I'm at. And usually when that happens, curiosity takes the better of me. But in reality, when you really break this hand down and you dissect it, you have to realize that you have to put the money aside. You got to put the big boy boots on. Look, I'm not a cowboy, but I sure as hell pretended to be one when I was a kid. And in every instance that I'm put to the test, I try to break down the hand as logically as I can. I just don't think this gentleman here has any hand for value. I just cannot imagine it. And I know that this player is significantly more than capable enough of taking a really interesting hand or some kind of queen X or jack X holding that he decided to play super weird and turn into a bluff. After all that's being said, I decide to be the cowboy I've always dreamed of being and make the call. Let's hear the table talk.
But I don't.
Thank fucking God.
Wow! You see that? What the heck? I need to get out. This dude. What the hell? Hell of a play, hell of a call. Oh, yeah, that's what it's like.
A really unbelievable situation there, as you guys caught. My opponent was bluffing with jack 6 off. I believe he had the jack of spades, if I'm correct. So he just turned his jack high into some kind of weird bluff on the flop. I don't know if that's what the solvers are saying to do nowadays, but I mean, that was like literally the sickest call I think I've ever made. And the gentleman from Solve for Wise Poker Out Loud fell back in his seat there. So, I mean, I felt like a rock star for a moment. What a call. Let's fucking go. Here we are in another hand, and we find ourselves tangled up with a very, very solid professional that you guys are familiar with from the Solve for Why Poker Out Loud series. Anyways, we look down at ace 10 offsuit. We decide to open to $120. It folds to him in the big blind. He decides to make the call. The straddle calls as well. The flop comes king, queen, 8, rainbow. They check to me. I'm going to go ahead and play in flow here and decide to c-bet. This is a board that's going to be really good for my early position raise. And beyond that, it's also nice to build a pot if you ever do hit the gut shot. The implied odds are definitely strong here that all of us are so deep at this point, playing significantly over $5,000 effective. I decided to c-bet for $220. He decides to think about it for a little bit and decides to make the call. The straddler gets out of the way. The turn comes a brick, a 6. He checks to me once again, and in this position, I have to decide whether I'd like to put this into my 3-barrel hand. I do have 2 really good cards for this instance. The ace and the 10 are actually pretty great. I have blockers to both ace king and king 10. And more importantly, my range is significantly stronger than his range from the big blind. I decide to bet $560 here, looking to bet a pretty substantial amount on the river. He thinks about it for a little bit and decides to make the call. The river is another break here. It comes a 3. And when the opposition decides to check once again, I'm now left in a position of what do I think his holdings consist of? I think he has to have some sort of top pair or second pair with a weak kicker. He's a very much thinking player and he's a good player. So I just don't believe he's going to have a hand that is like ace king or king queen. I think he definitely put that into his 3-betting range pre-flop. All that being said, I decided to bet $1,200, putting the pressure on him. And he goes deep within the tank here. And this is not the first time it happens today, but this is the second time I face an opponent that is using the ever so elusive randomizer application on their phone. So if you guys aren't familiar, I'm just going to try to make this as simple as I can, but GTO players have ways of randomizing calls in spots where they're supposed to call 25% of the time or X% of the time, and they use a randomizer to suggest what percentage it is at this point. And I guess on this time, it's a call. He shows down king 9 offsuit. Outstanding call by him on the river. I think maybe if his randomizer was, 80% of the time he's supposed to fold and that came my way, it's, it's a fold nonetheless, but nothing to take away from here. Outstanding call on his part. Put the piece of the puzzle together, and my line was a little confusing to him. I'll definitely look back at this, talk to a coach about it, but at this very moment, I'm still pretty happy with the 3-barrel bluff. I think that my hand makes sense. I can easily have kings, queens, king, queen, and ace, king, and go for this much value, in my opinion. But until then, going off to the next hand, let's go. As the session winds down, I think you guys are starting to get a picture for how unbelievably swingy the session has gone. Some good, some bad, some ugly, some not so much. Anyways, we're in the situation similar as before. It folds to me in the small blind, and I look down at king, queen offsuit. I decide to raise here. Big blind folds. And the straddler, which is the same player we made the ace high call against, decides to make the call once again. The flop comes jack 9-3 with 2 clubs. I decide to c-bet here for $110. Again, this board is a little more tricky. This actually does favor my range a little more. And I think I should be going a little larger than this, but I'm not going to kill myself over it. My opponent decides to make the call after thinking a little bit about it. I'm going to ask you guys kindly, because I need it right now. We're going to need a very favorable turn card to come out. I'm thinking of a card, one that can really change the dynamics of this session. Can we peel off a 10 here? Like right now, 1, 2, 3. The turn card comes a 10 of hearts. Oh my goodness. I can't even control my emotions at this point. Considering how insane this session has gone through, we haven't been able to find any really huge value spots. We've been trying to make hands where they're not there to be made. But finally, we have a huge hand. No time to slow play here. A ton of hands are made or improved by this point. So I decided to bet $420. I'm trying to bloat the size of the pot pretty quickly. My opponent decides to tank call the $420 bet. We're onto a river. I'm praying for a brick. The river comes a 9, so it does pair the board, but I feel like I would have heard from my opponent if he had some sort of set. I decide to go all in for $1,600. He snap calls. I ask him if he has a boat. He says no. I show king queen, and he shows the lower side of the straight for 7-8. Oh my God. Let's go. What a comeback. What a roller coaster. Unbelievable cooler for that gentleman. Could not catch a break. But you know what? I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm happy. We really went for it. We really did everything we could to get maximum value there. Setting up for a huge bluff there on the river if I had a bluff. Setting myself up for success there by putting on the pressure early on in the session. Me and this player have had over 6 hours of prior play throughout the day, and it all culminated to this moment. I am freaking excited. Let's go. What a freaking session. I think you guys can tell I was pretty gosh darn card dead for like the entirety of the session. I'm not really, I don't know, I try not to bitch and complain on the vlog too much, you know what I mean? I try to just be honest, and I felt pretty card dead. I felt like I just could not catch a break, and I think that held true. We didn't even find a hand that, even a pair, for most of the evening, it felt like. And one of the biggest pots that we played was actually us finding an insane hero call, as you guys saw there. And anyways, you guys saw how it went. I don't need to fucking keep yabbering on about how that went, but it didn't go amazing. And even with all that being said, we somehow were into the game for $4,000 and out for $44.93, $3 to the cashier. So profit of $490. It could be significantly worse. You know, I'm not going to pretend like I didn't run good in the biggest spot of the night. I mean, as you guys saw there, after that big bluff with the ace-10, we were looking to mix it up, and that is exactly what happened. Where we cooled that guy, he had the bottom side of the straight, we had the top side of the straight, and that's just how poker goes. Just want to thank you guys all for the next goal, which is us getting ourselves all the way up to 15,000 subscribers. All this couldn't have been done without you folks. I'm very grateful and thankful for you guys as always. More importantly, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Deuces. Thanks, guys.